Okay, what was your position in private school?
Private school, I started out, are you recording this?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, not writing anything down. Private school, I started out teaching math, strangely enough, and and then I was also taught English
And where did you work?
at McQuaid Jesuit High, and I taught speech. This is all at the parochial school. I taught several levels of math and taught religion and did AP classes in biology, preparation classes in biology.
Okay, what was your position in a public school?
Public school, my first year was strictly teaching English, grades 9 and 12. My second year, there was an opening in guidance, and I went into guidance.
And how long were you in that for?
32 years.
Okay.
So,
How would you say your experience in a public school was different from your experience in a private school?
well, several things. Main thing was I went from an all-boys school to having to crack the whip to keep them in order to a co-ed class, which I was not prepared for. In fact, I remember the first week of school, I was so used to yelling at boys to keep them quiet that I yelled at a girl, and she got up and cried and ran out of the room, which was, I says, oh my God, here I am, you know. But it worked out. I learned to handle girls, and I realized they calmed the classrooms, and that's what I was trying to do, I guess, was get some talking going where I had too much talking in the private school with all boys, and so anyway, we got down to that. The setting was different too. We were in a state situation, whereas McQuaid is an all private Jesuit run school, Catholic school.
So is the curriculum different?
No, the curriculum in English, for example, was the same. They did not take Regents tests, but they took what they called a provincial test, and it was probably the same, if not harder, in the parochial school because McQuaid chose their students, whereas public schools, it's the whole shebang.
Gotcha.
So.
What do you think the pros and cons are of a public school?
Well, they're certainly cheaper. It cost a fortune to go to McQuaid, it still does. One of the pluses was you had more of an intellectual climate in the classroom. You didn't have a mixture of kids unless you had an honors class or non-regents class. But kids are kids. The subjects are the same. So I don't know what else I'd say on that one. But,
Okay. Do you believe that one is more beneficial than the other?
absolutely not. Parochial school, Catholic schools, private schools, whatever you want to call them, choose their students and thus have a more intellectual situation. Although the year I started at McQuaid, the bishop chose not only let the Jesuits come to Rochester if they would teach what they would call regular kids. And so they did start classes like that, but they were all in separate classrooms. And
That you mean is different from the so-called smart kids?
well,
Or
yeah,
the regular kids? Okay,
regular kids.
just to
yeah.
clarify.
And the private schools were, I was fortunate enough to be in a private system, Penfield, where we sent over 90% of the kids on to college. So it
Wow.
was different than teaching in a city school. But it was educational to me, just to see the backgrounds and the difference,
Right.
even in Penfield compared to McQuaid.
Yeah. Do you think that we should have both public and private schools, or do you think that there should just be one school or one type of school?
I think you have to have
Why is that?
different schools because some people think, and it's probably also true in certain ways, that you get a better education if you go to a school that is controlled and geared towards teaching
Okay.
itself.
Do you think the kids who went to public school have the same chance in college as kids who went to a private school?
A lot of them, definitely. It's depends on the district you work in. But there's getting into college depends on what the kid himself can do.
So it's not necessarily the school they went to as much as the individual?
It would be part of it.
Okay.
The kids in some of the public schools don't want to go to college. So
That's true. And then lastly, which did you prefer best, public or private?
oh, just give me a kid and I'm happy. I think the experience of teaching in those two places was beneficial. And being in the private school and then going to a public school gave me another whole new outlet. But
Yeah.
I liked them both. I think it was, I couldn't say. Particularly because going back to my going into counseling, I was not in the academic part of it so much as dealing with teacher-student problems, boy-girl problems,
You liked that or you didn't
parent-student
like
problem.
that?
I liked that
Okay.
tremendously. But that was one of the things that I really liked about public schools was being in counseling. Strangely enough, the private school started me in counseling and then opened a counseling center, but I didn't stay there long enough to do that. And the other thing, which probably forced, in a way, my move, was the whole financial situation. McQuaid was super excellent. The Jesuits were excellent. I think the atmosphere was just excellent. But the salary was confined to what a private school could do. So I went to, when I went to the private schools and got into the state system, it just changed the whole ballgame.
Right.
Money became systematic and livable far more as we had more kids. We have 5. You look at the price of shoes for the young
Right.
child. It just necessitated going
Yeah.
to the public schools because of the financial structure.
But you enjoyed both?
Loved them both, yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. That was easy.